On behalf of the Minority Business Alliance, myself, our Vice Chair, Kay Monroe, and our Vice Chair of Finance, Mr. Alex Erpy, who's not here today. He's on vacation with his family. Good for him. We say thank you once again. The Minority Business Alliance is a membership-driven organization. We only raise money by the membership, people that join our organization. And one of our main goals for 2020 and moving forward is to continue relentlessly create value for our membership and relentlessly create value for the community in which we live and all the business community here. Today we have some very special guests. This series of creating your financial narrative, and let's talk about money. Money is all about understanding your business finances so that you can take control over your financial fate and take your business to the next level of growth and profitability. As these local, state, and national conversations happen around the lack of minority business access to capital, and these doors of equity begin to start opening for us, we want you to be informed, empowered, and emboldened and confident to seize upon these opportunities of accessing capital for your business. But there's a foundation that we feel like that you must know, must understand. And so this series has been all about setting the stage for you all to be empowered to take advantage of opportunities that we see are developing in our society. Part one was Know Your Business. That one was all about understanding your financial statements. The title of it was Know Your Numbers Above the Crisis and Rise Above the Crisis Through Financial Analysis. Part two, which was last month, was Demystifying the Financials and the Bank Loan Process. We brought in the president of the market for Blue Ridge Bank to come in to speak about the bank loan process and to demystify that process, because sometimes there's a whole lot of stress behind going into the bank and not knowing what to say, not knowing what to expect. So that was a very good foundation. And these two, those videos can be found on the Chamber webpage. But today, part three is about scaling your business and scaling your mindset. Entrepreneurial pathways to maximizing building your wealth. So we're very excited about this conversation because it's just building on each and every meeting, every step that we've covered thus far. So I want to go ahead and introduce our guests. I'm going to share with you their bios, and then we want to dive right in. So first, our first guest is Ann Thompson. She's the founder of Operation Productivity, and she's a certified productive environment specialist. She has 2 decades of experience partnering with clients to streamline operations and maximize profitability, and is a 6 Sigma certified quality black belt with expertise in cutting costs, increasing productivity, and improving service delivery for clients. She partners with clients to identify needs and resolve critical issues. She leads executive teams through complete transformations of IT, operations, procurement, and service delivery organizations to drive bottom line financial performance gains. She implements best practices and continuous improvement programs to successfully convert underperforming business units into highly productive organizations delivering desired results, and collaborates with clients using proven methodologies to improve efficiencies, resulting not only in tangible results like increased profits and productivity, but also a priceless sense of calm, peace of mind, reduced stress, and increased energy. And sign me up for that. Now, our next effervescent guest is going to be Fran Harris. Now, Fran is like, I call her Super Fran. She's the founder and CEO of Electra Beverages, LLC. She's the former Procter & Gamble sales executive who managed a multi-million-dollar health and beauty brands for this 182-year-old consumer packaged goods titan. Fran brings a delicious tapestry of expertise and experience that includes being an elite college and professional basketball star, a former host of HGTV series, Home Rules. She's an ESPN announcer and a real estate developer who's set to open her first sports facility in 2022 down in Texas. The author of more than 20 books, Fran is a Fortune 50 business consultant and dynamic speaker on digital, marketing, sales, and media. She holds 2 journalism degrees and a Master of Science in Tech Commercialization from acclaimed McComb School of the acclaimed McComb School of Business at the University of Texas at Austin. She's an avid cupcaker and an award-winning screenwriter who I've had the pleasure of seeing one of her plays, which was excellent. I'm actually ashamed that I invited these 2 powerhouses because we have 2 powerhouses in the building. And I'm ashamed because I booked them on the same session. They really deserve their own session. But I hope you forgive me, ladies. The information they'll share has a connective energy for our goals of informing and inspiring you, the audience. So both will have 20 minutes to present. Please provide your questions as an audience in the chat box. We'll plan on monitoring those questions and answering those questions in between presentations and wherever else we see appropriate. But we'll also answer some questions and shoot for a Q&A afterwards. We're running a bit late, but I'm very excited. This session is being recorded. And so just get your pen out and get ready for some great information. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. So thank you so much for that warm welcome and allowing me to join you guys here today. I'm just blessed and honored to be here to share my insights with you. Like Clinton said, I have about 20 years experience working with folks like yourselves to get you to the point where you might be able to scale your businesses. Definitely chime in the chat, pipe in with questions. I want to definitely hear everyone's thoughts on this topic as well. So let's just dive in. So what are we going to talk about today? What is scaling is the first thing. Just lay the groundwork to define what that is. When should I scale? Am I ready to scale? Do I even want to scale? And what do I do to prepare to scale? And then I think Fran's going to really talk about, since she has the business that has scaled, potentially multiple businesses that have scaled, she's really going to dive into what that's like in real practice. So scaling, what is it? It's become quite the business buzzword for people to say, I want to scale my business. But what does that really even mean? And I think it's gotten a little bit confused with growing a business, and sometimes is used synonymously with growing, but it's actually not the same thing. So we're going to dive into what scaling is versus growth. So first, what's scaling? Scaling simply means to significantly grow your business such that you can multiply your revenue without having to invest large sums of money. So it's creating a foundation that you can serve way more customers with the same resources. So if costs increase at the same rate as you grow your revenue, that's a business that doesn't currently scale. So an easy example to think about is something like software development. The main cost goes into the initial development of that software, but then after that, you just add more and more users, and it's just another copy of that software has sold. So no major work has occurred after the initial development. So that's a classic example of a business that scales. And this is why many tech startups have access to large amounts of capital, because they have businesses that are inherently scalable. On the other hand, you can think of a service-based business. So to pick on myself, a service-based business like myself as a consultant, many times a client requires one-on-one customized service and one expert or one consultant can only handle a certain number of clients at any given time. And in order to significantly grow, you potentially need to add more investment in terms of hiring more consultants within your organization. So that would be an example of a business that doesn't currently scale. And it doesn't mean that it can't scale. You just maybe have to do things that are a little bit more creative than you would if you had a business that's kind of just inherently more scalable, like a product-based business. So growing versus scaling, again, like I said, it's sometimes scaling is confused with growth. And many people think scaling up simply means acquiring more customers. But it also refers to how you respond to your new customers, what infrastructure you have in place to serve them. So scaling your business means you're able to handle a large increase in sales in a cost-effective and reasonable manner. And in doing so, your company doesn't suffer in other areas. For example, something that might happen when you're trying to grow really fast is employee turnover could increase because people get upset with the increased workloads that's being placed on them. Or your product can't be produced fast enough. You end up with a really large backlog of orders. So that means you were growing too quickly. You potentially weren't ready to scale to that level. So growing just simply means becoming larger or greater over time. So to think of it in terms of dollars, let's say that you grew your and increased your revenue by $50,000 this year. But when you did that, your costs increased by, let's say, $40,000. So the net of that would be that you made $10,000 more dollars. So that might be great. That might be something that you're really excited about doing, but that doesn't mean that your business scaled up. To scale would mean you were able to increase your revenues, maybe quadruple your revenues, but then your costs only went up incrementally. Your cost didn't increase at the same rate as your sales. And so a business that can generate new revenue without generating that same degree of expenses, that's a business that can scale. So a lot of times when we grow, we have to add more employees, purchase a bunch of new materials, maybe get a new space. So in those cases, those businesses aren't necessarily scaling, just growing, which isn't a bad thing. Growing is great. So we'll talk about when should I scale? When should I even be thinking about that? So if you believe you have a business that's scalable or a potentially scalable business model, how do you know if you're ready? How do you know if you're ready for lots of new growth? So some things that need to be in place prior to scaling would be really strong cash flow. Your costs are controlled. You have very predictable profits. You've been achieving all of your previously set goals, and you have a really strong pattern of continuous growth. So not just 1 month of great sales or 1 quarter of really good sales. It's a pattern of growth over time. And then at that point, you might be ready to scale up your business. So some things to think about. Do you struggle to service your current customers? Do you feel like your systems aren't keeping up? Do you have a lot of one-offs? Are your processes inconsistent or undefined? Are you having trouble handling your current customers with your current infrastructure? Or do you feel like your process and system isn't keeping up with current volume? If any of those things are happening, that would be indications that you're not quite ready to scale yet. You need to put some things in place prior to truly being able to scale up versus just growing. And so 2 key ingredients to know if you're ready to scale is having systemized operations and predictable sales. So if you have that, you're likely ready to scale. So when considering if you're ready, some more things to think about is to think in terms of people, process, and system. So when you're thinking about people, process, and system, if all of those things are working really well together, then you're probably saving a lot of time, a lot of money, and you're probably scalable. So when you're thinking about people, think about your training and the awareness of your people in terms of where your company is going, where you want to grow to. Are they aware of it? Are they Or do they have really clear roles and responsibilities? Is more than one person able to do more than one other person's jobs? Do they have strong ownership and accountability of their role and within their specific part in the company, and then just overall, really into the company's mission and vision for the business? Do they have the right skills for the right jobs? And then in terms of process, do you have management systems in place? Do you have process and procedure in place? Are you using best practices and benchmarking? Do you have strong audits and quality controls in place? And then in terms of systems, are your systems functioning? Do you have data integrity and accurate data coming out of them? Are you able to pull reports and dashboards to help you drive data-driven business decisions? And if all of those things are working well together, then you might be ready to scale your business. Something else to think about is, do you even want to scale? So it really depends on your goals. Not every business wants to increase their business operations, and that's totally fine. Scaling a business requires a lot more resources potentially. It may involve altering your business model. It will involve cultivating new business relationships and so many more things. And that's additional work that not all businesses want to or able to do, and that's completely fine. So to think about scaling a business, we could compare it to something like running a marathon. So a medium marathon time for an average male in the US is around 4 hours and 20 minutes. And that sounds really fast to me, but you could decide that you also want to run a marathon and you could finish it in that same time. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with running your marathon at an average pace. Many people can run a marathon in an entire day. But if you really want to dramatically improve your marathon time, then that would involve lots of additional time for training, changing your diet, maybe adding in intervals and hills, and working on your VO2 max, all sorts of things. If you really want to become an elite runner and see improvements in your conditioning. So the same thing would apply to your business, that you could be completely content with your successful business that you are currently running, and that's great. And then, other people have different goals of wanting to, take it to the next level. So a couple of things to think about is, do you have a sustainable or a scalable business? So a sustainable business is one that exists as long as you're in it, that it goes away when you're no longer running things. And then a scalable business, that's one that can live on without you. Somebody else could run it, somebody else could buy it, it could be franchised, you could add multiple locations, you could have an operation here in the US and something overseas. So a scalable business can become so much more than just the person that's running it. And then finally, how do I prepare my business to scale? So if all that sounds good and you're like, yeah, I think I have a business that could fit that, those sound like goals that I want for my business. The main things that you want to do is streamline, simplify, and standardize your operations. And that's how you'll make your business become more scalable. So 7 key steps that you might follow is to make sure that you have the right strategy for your business. So make sure you really know your business model. You have goals in place that'll help you get to where you want to go with your strategic vision, and you're really committed to that growth. The people in your organization are committed to that growth. You have targets in place and plans of concrete actions that'll take you to those goals, with like actual dates and timelines. The second thing, and this is where I live in my business a lot, is establishing standardized process and systems. So streamline your operations to the point that everyone in the company is following the most efficient process and procedure. Once you have all your systems in place, that's when you'll be able to be truly scalable. And it takes time to create these solid processes. It takes time to document new and existing workflows and procedures and improving and optimizing those procedures while at the same time caring for your existing client base. But if you put in the time and effort to do that, you'll reap the rewards of those consistent and efficient business processes in the long run for years and years to come. And the third thing is to make sure you have the right people in place and that you're potentially outsourcing things that don't need to live within your organization. So businesses can really only, in that diagram where I said people, process, and systems, people are such a big part of being able to scale. So you need to make sure that you have people in your organization that are committed to growth, that they're ready for change. So one thing we know that's consistent as business is that it will change. In 2020, I think it's taught us that we have to be able to flex, we have to be able to grow. And so you want to invest in your people so that you can reduce turnover and have the best talent in your organization that's really committed to helping it grow. And then in terms of outsourcing, a lot of times it makes a lot of sense to outsource some of the things that aren't part of your core business process. Some things to think about are like accounting or social media or web development. Some of those pieces of your business a lot of times make sense to outsource to someone else that's the expert in that and just keep your core business process within your organization. Then the fourth thing is investing in technology. So make sure that you're utilizing technology to build a really solid infrastructure and automate operations where you can. Technology can make things so much easier and less expensive to scale by automating and allowing things to happen at a lower cost and more efficient. You have to be careful with how many different systems that you're using and make sure that they're all talking to each other. So we can get in trouble with systems as well. So, but with technology, we can get huge economies of scale and increase throughput and reduce our labor if we invest in technology wisely. And then fifth, you want to improve your marketing. We just want to really articulate your competitive strengths and get really clear on your messaging so that when you are ready to scale, you're crystal clear with what it is that you're selling as you aggressively acquire new customers when you get into that growth mode, the true large growth mode. And then sixth, improve your reputation. So as you are preparing for this massive growth that you want to undertake, make sure that you are maintaining just the highest quality of delivery of your products and services to your existing client base. You want to make sure that your current clients have faith that as you continue to grow, you're still going to be able to provide the same level of service. And then you want to work on it, building collaborations with other service providers, partners, manufacturers, suppliers, sales channel partners, anybody that you can work with to extend your partnerships outside of your own organization will really help. Just building those deep collaborations with other folks. And then finally, make the business run without you. Like that's when you'll be truly scalable. So it should literally be able to function without you there. And it will require like methodical shifting of responsibilities from your plate onto others. And what I recommend a lot of times is to take like deliberate absences from your business so that you can test out and see how it can run without you, especially before you get to that really large growth mode, and make sure that things really are to the point where you don't need to be there for it to be successful. So when you become truly scalable, your business will be making money while you're off doing other things. Maybe you're laying on a beach or starting another business, anything that you have in mind for your future. It's really kind of the sky's the limits once you're able to scale. So that's what I have for you guys today. Do you have any questions for me about your individual businesses or what you might need to do to get to a place where you're sipping cocktails on the beach?
And before we move to the questions, do you mind maybe going to the slide with your contact info, because someone wanted to get that info. Thanks.
Yeah.
Right. And Q has a question. other than a software company or fast food franchise, share a few examples of businesses that you've worked with that have scaled. And if you have a revenue example of how one of them grew.
Sure. So I work with a business that it was actually a really small solopreneur, used to provide just one-on-one counseling services in a particular niche, and was not making very much money. Her dollars for time, she was spending so much time up front preparing for these one-on-one sessions, not charging enough for those one-on-one sessions, and then even doing like post work and not getting any repeat business from that. And so in order to scale her business, she now has a paid membership group where people pay a monthly fee to be a part of this organization. And it's a sensitive topic. So having like a private membership only group has allowed people to really be more open and communicating about their issues that they're having. And so she has this kind of passive income coming in with the memberships. And then she has online courses that she's added to her offerings. So people can just learn what they would get from her in a one-on-one session, but anytime they want to. She also is offering monthly Zoom meetings in a group setting, so she's able to kind of scale up in that way. She is, we took her services, this like 1 hour service she was charging just not nearly enough for, and we created multiple different packages. And so we had kind of like the standard, and then like the silver and the gold and the platinum. And the platinum service was really that one-on-one service that she was providing before at a very, very small cost. That's actually a really expensive service now. And then also she's a published author. And so she's continuing to blog, and we've got her hired by some organizations that are paying her a monthly retainer to kind of ghost blog on their websites. She's also, one more thing I was going to say. I don't know, she's doing so many things. So she diversified her offering. So that's one of the things I always recommend to people is let's look at how you can diversify what you do. So if you offer a product, can you turn it into a service and offer both? If you offer consumer to consumer, can you sell to businesses? Oh, that was the other thing for her. So she, in addition to her one-on-one work with just individuals, she also was fielding tons of questions and providing all this free advice to other people that are in similar fields to her professionally. So instead of offering that free advice, now we have offerings for other professionals that she can now charge for her services instead of giving away all of her knowledge for free. And we're talking about potentially creating a certification program for her business where she can certify some other folks to do what she does, and then truly become scalable, where there's going to be this entire organization of folks that are providing her service.
Thank you.
That was a really long answer. Sorry. Did I answer the whole question?
Yeah, for the most part. I was looking for some other examples of businesses, like other than a franchise business or a software company. Consulting, that's an example of a consulting.
Yeah, so consulting, so for my business, one thing that I want to add to my offerings is an online version of working with me. So I definitely follow a prescribed process when I work with a business. I go in and define current processes. I figure out what we're going to measure, what your key performance indicators are. I analyze all of your data and figure out which areas are most important to improve first, and identify the constraint. There's a whole process that I follow. And I could do one-on-one with a person, but if you wanted to say, okay, I want to improve my business, but I can't afford or don't want to work with you, you could take my online course. I could teach you what I would do in this setting where we'd be working one-on-one, and you can learn it that way, and you'd pay a fraction of what you would pay to get, you know, that one-on-one customized service, but you might be able to get far down the path of improving your own internal operations. And then maybe at some point you would need to call in for, you know, more expert advice, or maybe not. Maybe you can just take it and run with it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing. That was that's good information. We're going to move on, but like the example that you gave actually leads right personally of something I know personally about Fran, some of the things that she does. So this is a perfect segue to open the floor for Fran. We got one other question about if you're going to share your slides or not, but we're gonna open up the floor for Fran and ask if you could just answer that question in the chat box, and appreciate it.
All right, you guys can hear me okay. I'm hearing a quick little echo, and it's telling me I cannot share my screen. Is that by design, Q? Are you punishing me?
I just stopped sharing, so maybe you can.
Yeah.
But you were a little late. You were a little tired. You know what I'm saying?
Nobody had to know all that.
You got to send a firing shot every now and then. Man, I know how you like firing shots.
They didn't even know. You put me on blast like that, but it's all good. And that was great. Absolutely amazing. And I'm really excited. Thank you for having me involved in this. I love talking about the things I'm going to talk about with you guys. And I'm going to try to share my screen again, see if I'm off punishment. There we go. Let's get back to the beginning. There we are. And, but before we jump in, I want to say that everything I'm about to share with you about scaling and securing the bag is learned information. I was not born with this information, this knowledge, these skills, these qualities. Everybody listening and watching right now needs to understand these are things you can learn. All right. So let's jump in. What you're about to see now is an LOI. This is a letter of intent. Some people call it a letter of interest. And this is from one of my banking partners for the project that Quentin mentioned, my sports facility that I'm opening in Dallas in a couple of years. So this is from a bank that essentially says, we've had these conversations with Fran about her project, and if everything kind of pans out, due diligence, we'll give her project $11 million. All right, let me repeat that. From not knowing anything about financial literacy, growing up in a family that wasn't wealthy, some of you can relate to that, we go to an $11 million letter of intent. And I start there because I want you to understand just the tip of what is possible if you learn how to do some things. All right, so now let's go back and let's talk about how to get funded, how to raise capital in record time. So Ann talked about scaling your businesses, which I loved. The processes, the people, the product, all of that great stuff. And then sometimes to scale your business, what you really need after you've done everything Ann talked about is money. Sometimes you need to secure the bag. Sometimes you need to just go out and find the money to help get you to that next step and that next level. And that's what I'm going to talk about in my quick time with you today. So the first thing, there are 7 things you need to be thinking about when it's time to raise capital. And again, capital can be $1,000, capital can be $100 million. It can be whatever you need to get your business to that next level. So there's 7 things that I typically talk about and that I found through experience, not through school, not through reading, through experience. I found that these are the 7 invaluable tenets and pillars of raising capital really, really fast. So the first one is you have to have the mindset of a distance runner. So I played basketball. There's no distance running in basketball. In fact, I completely sucked at distance running. In high school, I literally got off the track during a distance run because I told my coach I didn't want to run that, and he made me run it anyway. So I was in the last place, so I got off the track. That's a totally true story. And he was like, Harris, get back on the thing. I didn't have the mindset of a distance runner. I was a fast runner. I was a basketball player. In raising capital, you have to be in for the long haul. Now you might say, well, that's kind of contradictory with what you're saying. You're saying you want to raise capital first, you're going to raise capital fast, but you have to have a distance runner mindset. Yes, that is exactly the way it goes. Because what you have to understand when you're raising capital is that you're going to get some yeses, you're going to get some maybes, you're going to get some no's. But if your mindset is you're in this thing, you're in your business for the long haul, then you take those moments of rejection. You take those moments of opportunities and you just put it in the pot because you're in it for the long haul, right? Distance runner mentality and mindset. If you've ever watched the Olympics, if you've ever run track, then you know those people who are running the mile and all those long races, you notice that they have a temperament as they're running. They're not up and down. They're not emotional here and there. They have the same temperament no matter what's happening in that race. Cross-country runners are amazing in that way. So it's the same mindset that you have to have when it's time to raise capital, all right? I always say that I got my first rejection. My first investor was at 9 years old. It was my mother who was tired of buying me stuff, skates, soccer one week. You guys, if you have kids, you understand that they always want to do different things. And I wanted to sing in the choir at my church. And my mother said, you know what, if you want to sing in the choir, you need this choir robe, then figure out a way to get the money yourself. Now, I couldn't believe my mom was actually rejecting me and telling me no. And I always tell people that my mother was so mean that she was rejecting me for Jesus. Like she wouldn't even give me money for Jesus. That's how my mother was. But that taught me a lot about investing. Ultimately, what my mom said is, go in there, figure out what you need, and then come back and essentially pitch me. She didn't use the word pitch me, but she was like, let me see what you got. That was my first investor meeting at 9 years old. I wanted to start a snow cone stand. I had to take her a list of the ingredients that I had. I had to show her how I was going to pay her money back. When she was going to get her money back, I was pitching an investor. And ultimately, I got that deal. And what I learned from that is that sometimes when you get no's, when you're pitching people for money or even ideas, is that you're not dealing with your ideal pool of investors. That's why this particular slide is so important. Sometimes you need to you're getting no's because you haven't found and tapped into your ideal pool of investors, all right? Mindset of a distance runner, understanding that if you're getting no's, maybe you're not tapping into the right people, all right? Number two, you need to have a positive repayment profile. What does that mean? That means you need to be someone that an investor looks at and thinks they're going to get their money back, all right? Now, there are some things that are out of your control, because I'm going to talk really candidly with you guys. There are some things that are out of your control that may be biases in an investor's mind. You're a woman, you're a person of color, you're a Black person, you're LGBT. I mean, there can be a number. You went to a certain college. There are a number of things that are out of your control that don't impact whether an investor sees you as a positive repayment, like you're going to give them their money back. But then there are things that you can do to improve your repayment profile. Because when you approach an investor, the first thing that's on their mind is, if it's debt anyway, is, am I going to get my money back? Right? When am I going to get my money back? Am I going to get my money back? If it's equity, if there's somebody who's actually investing in your money, it's not so much about when am I going to get my money back? It's, am I going to get a return on my money? What kind of return on my money am I going to get? So the importance of this particular slide is this: do everything in your power to be a good bet. Meaning, if I'm going to invest in your company and we meet, you want me to feel like betting on you is a good deal, right? So your repayment profile is probably the first or second thing that pops into a potential investor's head. Is this person going to pay me my money back? So I'm looking at their credit. I'm looking at past history. I'm looking at people they do business with. I'm looking at vendors, suppliers. All of those things shape whether an investor, a potential investor, sees you positively from a repayment standpoint. Okay, so that's number two, really important. Again, some things are out of your control. They're going to be very frustrating when you meet someone who just doesn't want to invest in your group, whatever that is. People with curly hair, people over 6 feet, whatever that is, there's nothing you can do about that. But what you can do is to make sure the things that you can control, your credit, your associations, your payment history, those things are in your control, and you need to keep those on top. All right. Number three, securing the bag is a lot about stewardship. What does that mean? That means if you pitch me to invest in your business, I want to know if I can trust you. It's hard to know that when you just meet people, right? So is this person a good steward of their business? Is this person a good citizen? Is this person a great human being? Now, notice I didn't say anything about necessarily whether you were great at what you did in terms of your business. And the reason I didn't say anything about that is because I know a lot of people who invest in people. And you may have heard that, you've heard that talked about a lot on Shark Tank, or if you've gone to pitch summits, they look at the entrepreneur first, because you're the first expression of your brand in your business. You're the first thing I was the first thing you got to hear about my business. So you're making decisions about investing in my business based on me. All right. So an investor, potential investor is going, is this person a good steward of their business? Very, very, very important. And a lot of times people will pitch me and they got these great ideas and they're telling me about the ROI and the ROAS and all these other acronyms. And I'm thinking, all I'm thinking about is you right now. I'm just focusing on what kind of person you are and if you're going to be the kind of person that I want to be in business with. That's something that a lot of entrepreneurs really, really overlook. And I cannot understate it enough. I am thinking, do I want to be in business with you? Because there's no shortage of ideas out there. There's no shortage of great opportunities out there. But I'm finding, especially during these times right now, that the quality of people is a little disappointing, just to be candid with you. Who people are is a little disappointing. So make sure of all the things and the variables that you cannot control about your business or how a potential investor will feel about your business, what you can control is the quality of individual you are, okay? An investor is thinking, can I trust this person to run their business, to be a good steward, those are the things that investors are thinking. So that's number 3. Number 4, do you have a realistic business plan? I'm gonna take a swig of water real quickly because I talk really fast and that's on purpose so that you'll keep up, by the way. But it gets me very tired, so I gotta drink real quick, 1 second. All right, does this person have a realistic business plan? Meaning, the business model that you have, you're saying we're gonna be $100 million company in 5 years, but the business plan you're showing me gets you rubbing 2 pennies together by next November, right? So is your business plan realistic? You have to know, it's not necessarily at this point about knowing your numbers. It's literally about the engine and the makeup of your business, your business model. Can't tell you how many entrepreneurs don't even really know what a business model is. A business model is everything you do, what you do that makes your business work. We all know the popular business model of McDonald's. Burger machines, they put the burger and the lettuce and the tomatoes on it the same way. They ship it, they give it to the person who puts the wrapper on, and the person, that's a business model. That's part of their business model, right? So do you have a realistic business plan? Potential investors are not necessarily looking for always this humongous payday. They want to know if the plan that you're putting in front of them, what you're pitching them, makes sense. Does it make sense? Can it work in this environment? Can it work during pre-COVID, post-COVID, during COVID? That's what a potential investor wants to know. Is it realistic? And there will be people who will tell you that you don't need a business plan. And to some degree, I actually agree with that, because I know lots of people who have business plans that don't follow their business plans, or they have business plans that don't print the kind of money that they said it was going to print. So it's not just necessarily just about doing a business plan. It's about creating a realistic, a viable business plan. All right, that's number 4. Number 5, killer financials. Killer financials. And I don't have a finance degree. So everything I've learned and I'm telling you about securing the bag and raising capital has been learned. I do have a business degree. I have a master's in tech commercialization. But I learned how to create killer financials. My other degrees are in journalism. Not a lot of stuff going on in finances in journalism. So I understood that when it came time to pitching investors, I needed to either hire somebody, have someone on my team who understood the language of bankers and lenders and investors while I was getting up to speed on that stuff. So I want you to hear that you don't have to come to the table with a huge understanding of profit and loss statements and balance sheets and all those. You don't have to. You do need someone on your team who understands those things, so that when a banker or an investor, potential investor, starts asking you these technical financial terms, you're not you're not out of your league and blowing the deal simply because you weren't savvy enough to bring somebody in the room with you for the pitch who could answer those questions. So what are killer financials? The thing that I'm consistently asked about with investing, even with the $11 million letter of intent that you guys saw earlier from one of my banking partners, is what they wanted. I literally just said, now, what do you mean by that? Like, don't be afraid to say, what do you mean by that? He goes, well, what we're going to need is, I can't remember what he asked, but I remember going, okay, what do you mean by that? Because I want to make sure I get him the right stuff. This is not the time to let your pride and your ego get in the way of you getting a deal. It was clear, if I'm having a conversation with the banker and we're talking about $12 to $15 million and we're entertaining that conversation, it's clear he's interested in doing business with me. So this is not the time for me to act like I know everything. All right. I want to say that because sometimes entrepreneurs think they have to know every little thing about every little thing in their business when they're attempting to pitch and raise capital, and you don't. So I want to say again, just have somebody in the room or someone on your team who can answer those questions. All right. Killer financials. Where are you going to be in 5 years? Not literally just, oh, Harry Carey, wonderful, this is where I hope to be. No, literally, financially speaking, where are you going to be in 5 years? An investor, a lender, a banker wants to know that. So you need to be able to put financials together and projections together that show, here's where the revenue is coming from. By year 3, we expect to actually be at a break-even point. At year 4, we think we'll be we'll be stable. Like, to be able to have those conversations. And honestly, guys, one of the things that's been the most rewarding thing about running companies has been the ability to just get better at these conversations for me. Like, I used to stress about going to meetings, financial meetings, because I didn't know the language. I didn't know what to say in those situations. And over time, I just got better at those things. Over time, I stopped bringing my CFO to the meeting because I understood the language. I understood what was going to be asked of me. I understood what was going to be expected of me. And I started to enjoy learning about my finances. Okay. So the killer financial part is critical, because nobody's going to give you, I'm not going to give you $10,000, $10 million if you can't tell me what's going to be happening with that money the moment it clears your bank, what the impact is going to be on your business, what the ebbs and flows are going to be of your cash flow, all of that. Okay. So killer financials are going to be critical for you to raising capital. Okay. Last thing I'll say about this before I go to the next slide is that you don't need to inflate your finances. So one of the things I did for the banker who gave me the LOI that you saw earlier was I gave him a worst case scenario. Like, listen, this is even pre-COVID, because that LOI was dated August of 2019, by the way. So it was just last year. So I gave them a low worst case scenario. Like, if we don't do any of the things I put in my business plan, this is where I think we might be. I gave like a realistic scenario with my financials. Like, this is probably where we'll end up. And then I gave a everything went really well scenario. So a best case scenario. And it's okay to do that. You have to feel confident enough in your numbers and your knowledge of your business to be able to do that. But just understand, investors, equity, debt, lender, bankers, whatever, they don't want you to paint a pie in the sky for them, because that doesn't help anybody. If I tell you we're going to make $100 million as soon as my facility opens near Dallas in 2022, then I lose credibility, because everybody knows that I'm probably not going to do 100 million in 2022. And this was even before COVID. All right. So what I said that to say, don't overinflate your numbers. Make sure you are good at giving a potential investor a low case scenario, bad situation, a probable situation, and a best case situation. All right. Number 6, getting there. You're going to be evaluated when it's time to raise capital on your idea. So is it, notice I didn't put that it has to be a great idea. It doesn't have to be a great idea. Is it a good enough idea? Has it been done before? Is typically what people want to know. How is it trending? Right? When COVID hit with my facility, some of our equity partners were like, I'm just being honest. They were like, I don't know, this COVID thing. And so I'm like, oh, we're good. We'll be back. We're not going to not have sports. People are not going to continue to put their kids in sports. We know that. So be able to talk about the trends in your business and what's going to happen post-COVID and those kinds of things. And then what's next? So you have a good idea for a business. Great. Doesn't have to be great, but what's next for your business? So when I think of my facility, I don't talk in terms of one facility. That's where we're starting, but we are actually creating a suite, a pool, a portfolio of facilities very similar to this facility around the country. So that gets investors excited, right? They want to know that there's a long play for you. So even if you're building your one widget or your one store and it's starting out as a mom and pop, well, what's the future? Are you going to open up some mom and pops around the country? Are you going to do, as Ann talked about, are you going to certify what I'm thinking of doing with a lot of my stuff that's online? Are you going to license it? What's the future for your business? Okay. And then finally, number 7, brings it all together, is the pitch. It's the pitch. Can you tell the story of your business success? Can you tell the story of how you came to be, how the business came to be in a compelling way, in a way that makes an investor want to take the ride with you? Can you do that? That's the key to getting investors to lean in and say, okay, tell me more. Can you get better at telling your story? And again, incorporating all the elements that I've talked about today, right? The long play, the financials, the product, the service, whatever your actual business is, you're part of the story. That's what makes a really good pitch. And that's it. Those are the 7 things that you need to secure the bag. Start securing the bag at 9 years old. And obviously, at 29, things are still going well for me. So I would say these 7 things really, really work. But they are the most critical pieces of getting folks to get interested in your business and ultimately pulling out their checkbook and or digitally sending you money. Questions?
Fran, I am so surprised that they're not more questions. So I always got 1 or 2
Yes.
or 3. But I mean, really, thank you, you and Ann. But thank you for sharing this information, the perspective, your energy, bringing. Part of the goal is bringing things that seem so high and unattainable down to earth that we can wrap our minds around.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important point. And you touched on so many things that just stood out to me, but 2 that were down really earthly was that being a good steward, just being a good steward of your business and being a good person and moving your ego out of the way and not being under pressure because you don't know something.
Yep.
So my question to you is, what can entrepreneurs do to build their confidence and just get better at the language of finance?
Well, that's a great question. And I usually put yourself on the hot seat. That's what I say. Put yourself on the hot seat. Go to, get involved in groups, networking groups, and accelerators and incubators where you are forced to talk about your business. And more importantly, not just sit around like a fireside chat and talk about it, but where people are kind of like a firing squad, if you will, around you, and they can shoot questions at you that you're forced to answer. That's how I got better, is just having people, calling people, say, hey, would you listen to my pitch? And then I said, just ask me whatever questions you want to ask me. And they did. And sometimes I would call people that I knew nothing about my business, because the quality of those questions were going to be so good, because they don't know anything about it. So they're going to ask me questions that may sound dumb to them, but they were poignant for me, So I love that. And I love being around people who've been in business much longer than I have. When I started in real estate, started pitching the facility, I would get in the room and have lunch with people who have been commercial realtors and people who have built, like one of my business partners has done like 2 billion square feet of retail space. I mean, he's done Targets and Walmarts and Starbucks and all this. So his wealth of knowledge is crazy. And I would just listen to him, and then I would just ask what most people would think would be dumb questions that he just enjoyed, talking to me about it. But it's really the practice. It's a repetition. It's putting yourself in the position to learn, and always being a learner and not being afraid to say, hey, I don't know that. Can you share a little bit more about this? When you say that, what do you mean by this? So for me, it was like just asking for it. Put me on the spot so I can get better at this.
Great answer. And the dumbest question is the one unasked.
Yeah.
We have another question from our good brother Troy Robinson, who says, should you ask for the amount of money that you need, or should you ask for a buffer?
Great question, Troy. I always ask for more. I always ask for more because everybody's heard the age old. So you ask for more. They don't want to give you more in many cases. So they're going to say what they say. And then maybe you meet somewhere in there. It's not even always in the middle, just somewhere in there. And so the great thing about that question is sometimes people are afraid to ask for more. There's so much psychology when you're doing investing in financials, is that sometimes people are afraid to ask for more because they're afraid they won't get anything. And there comes a time in your life as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, where you have to actually put your confidence to the test. If you believe in it, like for instance, I saw on Shark Tank the other night, somebody asked for like some ridiculous number. They evaluated their thing and there was no reasoning behind that. So they ended up not getting a deal just because they didn't know how to come to the table and say, okay, here's the evaluation. Here's what I want to ask for. So make sure, Troy, that that there's something legitimate in the ask. If you're going to ask for, if you need 10 million and you ask for 12 million, or 13 or 15 million, have a reason for that gap of 5 million. Don't just say, I'm just going to throw it up here because I know they're going to come in low. And no, like have a reason for that. Have an outline of what you're going to do if they go, okay, let's do it. You get it that way. So don't be afraid to ask for more. Don't be afraid to put more on the table, but also be ready to validate the ask.
Thanks for that question, Troy. As you guys may not know that's in attendance, but we are planning on going over a bit because these ladies deserve more time, for one. But hopefully anyone who has more time and don't have to move on to that next Zoom meeting, we're here. We want to answer as many questions. We want to open the floor up for both Ann and Fran. If you have any questions about the structure, the architecture that Ann has laid out about scaling your business, or the launching from that architecture that Fran's talking about, please submit your questions. We got one question now from the better half of House Harrell, the more eloquent one, which is what has relationships meant to your ability to succeed and why? Fran first and then Ann next.
Yeah, relationships are everything. And I know, in fact, it's the most important capital. There's financial capital, there's human capital, relationship capital is the thing that can really accelerate everything that you're doing. And for people who know me, I always put this out there. I'm like, building those relationships you don't have to have tons of relationships to be able to leverage those relationships, but the quality of those relationships are critical. And while we can't control what people say about us, we can control the kind of people that we truly are. And so I would tell people this: there are some things that are questionable. You can debate whether I was ever the best basketball player. You can debate whether but what is not debatable for me is the kind of human being I am. And I will put that up at any point. And that has actually helped me in business more than anything, is just the ability to build relationships, to be a caring, a great human citizen first. And then business comes from there. So for me, it's meant everything. It's meant picking up the phone and saying, hey, I don't know a person who, is in this space. Can you recommend someone? And because of that relationship and the trust and the stewardship between me and that person and that relationship, I've gotten introductions to places that I probably never would have. I can hear you.
Quentin, you're on mute.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Ann, instead of answering that question, Sue Friedman just posed another fantastic question, and we'll pose to you. It was one I actually had in the back of my mind for you while you were presenting. And that's, what resources or supports for small business financial success do we need in Charlottesville?
Well, I think we actually have a lot of that in place here in Charlottesville already. We just don't necessarily always do the best job of communicating to everyone that all those supports do exist. We have a wonderful SCORE office. We have SBA, we have SBDC, we have CIC, we have CBEC. We have so many organizations that are here to support small businesses. It's just knowing where they are. I actually had a call yesterday with a bunch of folks here in Charlottesville. A colleague of mine and I were putting together a visual of the entrepreneur ecosystem here in Charlottesville. And it talks about all the different stopping points on your journey as an entrepreneur, and seeking capital is one of those things. So stay tuned. David Deaton is my colleague that I was working with on that. And we're going to share lots of information about that in the future. Hopefully share it out with all of those organizations so that anybody that you do interact with, like we would be wanting to share it with the Minority Business Alliance. They kind of gives you a one-stop spot where you can say, okay, I'm here in my journey. Where do I need to go? Do I need to get more people? Do I need to get more money? Do I need to get support and improve my operations? So stay tuned for that. But there's lots and lots and lots in place. And once you reach out to one of those organizations, if they can't help you, they're all about referring you to other organizations that can. That's a wonderful thing about it. I think Charlottesville is so great. Everybody's willing to network and help and, seek either one of those organizations or another business person that because they've likely worked with people to get help as well.
Fran, there's a question that I'm not going to have you to do this, to run through it, but Isaiah is asking, would you be willing to share this particular PowerPoint?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right. So Isaiah, I'll Fran will send it to me and I'll send it to you, brother. Troy got another question. When looking to franchise with the food truck trailer business, how do you decide the amount franchisees should pay when it comes to your investment? Either one of you. So
is Troy asking, is it his business and then he's going to franchise his business? Is that what he's asking? Yeah. So I'll keep it real quickly. One of the first things I always do when I'm doing something that's already been done is to look at what other people have done. If you're doing something like a franchisee that a franchise has already been done, then go to their site and go through their process and figure out how much they have, what they're doing. So for instance, if I were starting a new hamburger place, I have an idea because I know McDonald's franchisees. I know Five Guys franchisees. I know what they pay. So it gives me an idea. If I'm a startup and they're charging, $250,000 for that, I'm probably not going to be charging $250,000 for my franchisee coming out of the gate. But that gives me an idea of A, where I'm going, and B, maybe I can find some space depending on demand and my particular business model and what I'm promising franchisees that I might be willing to charge. So always start, I don't know why we work so hard sometimes. The internet gives us the opportunity to do a little bit of research and just go, let's see who's doing what I'm doing, and let's see what they're doing. Find a representative group of people who are doing what you're doing, businesses that are doing what you're doing, and just kind of use that as a basis from where to start.
And anything to add?
No, but benchmarking was what I was going to say, which is basically what Fran's describing. So doing that type of research. And then also, again, I think businesses are always so willing to help others. So not like your direct competitor here in Charlottesville necessarily, but you could reach out to a food truck business that's in Michigan, and they might be able to share all their secrets with you. They might be more than happy to do that. If they're only trying to grow in the Midwest, they don't care about what you're doing in Virginia. So sometimes if you get creative and just reach out to other people, they'll tell you everything you want to know.
Fran, here's another good one. Oftentimes, what's you two guys' time looking like? You got a few more minutes?
Yeah, I do.
All right, just want to respect your time as we respect everyone else's. Fran, oftentimes when Black people are seeking funding, they get in their own head about what to ask for. Did you ever experience this? And if so, how did you overcome it?
think Black folks and probably non-Black folks are having some post-traumatic syndrome residual from asking their parents for money, because I know I experienced that a lot when I would go to my parents and ask them for money. And I'm joking, but I'm really serious. If you think about the imprinting that we have around money, and it just continues throughout our adult lives. So I would say do some work around whatever childhood traumas you've had and imprinting and mapping that you've had around money, because it's certainly impacting your ability to go out and secure the bag at a different level. And I think sometimes when you get in a pressure situation where you're about to ask for an amount that you've never even approached, then those blocks come into your head, all the things that you think people are thinking. Oh, I'm a woman. Oh, I'm Black. Oh, I'm an athlete. Oh, whatever, whatever your blocks are. Sometimes those things show up at the most inopportune times. And so if those things show up for me, regardless of what I'm doing, I usually kind of chuckle about it because they're there. And then I'm even more bodacious because I know I've got to make up. I probably undervalued this, and because I was afraid that I wasn't going to get it. So go for it and then just see what happens. And so I think that happens a lot, even in mentoring. When I mentor minority entrepreneurs, even when they start to talk about themselves and their businesses, it's always so understated. It's always so whatever. And I'm not a huge fan of humility, just to be candid with you. I think if you've done it, it ain't bragging. That's how I feel about it. And so when you get in the room with an investor, they want you to be confident. They want you to know your stuff and know your numbers. And sometimes we have to do the work, whatever our ghosts and demons are, do the work before you get in the room, and then be even bolder once you get there.